Welcome aboard. It's episode 4 of Ridin the Bus, the official Iowa Wild podcast, and for the first time this week, presented by our friends at Explore Minnesota. Ben Gislason joined by Joey Goldstein, and a lot to talk about this week. We're excited to be on to episode 4. I think, as we were joking before the show started here, someone along the lines somewhere when we were talking about this whole podcast scenario said a very high percentage of podcasts don't make it past episode 3. We're on to episode 4. So here we are. We're in elite company now. Here we are.
We've made it. We're in what is it? I don't know what the percentage was. We're probably in
we don't know.
We're probably in the top 1% of all podcasts in the world. No big deal.
Heard it here first.
Yeah.
Great to be with you. Great to be heard. Looking forward to this week's show. But we did have some time off. We didn't have a show last week celebrating Independence Day. You and I both had different experiences, but we want to take a second to recap that and just to share a good week off. I know you had the Beantown extravaganza is what I keep calling it when I'm talking with you about your time over. Not only time back in Boston, but some long miles to get there as well. You didn't take the plane back. You didn't hop on a bus either, but you were taking roads that I know we'll take during the season to head out east. Not quite that far, but nonetheless to head east. How was Beantown? How was your 4th of July celebration?
It was good. So, yeah, I drove like a lunatic all 18 hours back to Massachusetts because I brought my dog with me, 7-month-old puppy, and family wanted to see the dog and everything. So I said, we'll hop in the back seat, we'll go. And drove through Rockford, drove through Chicago, and I guess that's really it for our opponents. I passed signs that said Milwaukee, so that counts for something. But yeah, no, it was good. It's always good to go and go back, spend time with family. We have a big 4th of July party every year at our house, and then we did that on Saturday. So on the 4th itself, I had a full day of baseball. I went to Fenway in the afternoon to watch the Red Sox, and then back into Worcester to watch their AAA team play that night, see some fireworks. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. The drive was not that bad. The dog was great. She did pee in the back seat on the way to Massachusetts, which wasn't great. I got to Toledo, and I hit a stretch. I knew she had to go to the bathroom. I got to a stretch where there was no rest stop, nowhere to pull off really, and she's got ADHD. So if I'd stopped, just pulled over on this in the breakdown lane, she never would have gone to the bathroom. And then next thing I know, I'm in Toledo, and my car just smelled like buttered popcorn. And I turned around, and her whole seat protector thing in the back seat was just filled with pee. So that wasn't great. I had to get my car detailed and everything, which cost a lot of money, but it was good. I had a good trip.
So it sounds like you had a great 4th, man.
And then I drove all the way back, and she slept the whole way. So the rides were what they were. I had plenty of podcasts, including this one. And, watch the game film, take your notes, listen to the podcast on the way out. So hope everybody enjoyed the Al Stalock episode. But yeah, that was kind of my week in a nutshell. How was yours? What'd you do?
Well, first off, the great journalist that I am, I have to ask a follow-up question because I was sitting here listening, as a great journalist is taught to do in journalism school. Game notes. Did you make any notes about whether it be me or you or us on the podcast?
Yeah,
things we need to iron out.
No. I think nothing too crazy. I mean, we're going to try to add some things in here and there. Obviously, getting presenting sponsors big, making sure that you viewers or you listeners, you go subscribe to the podcast, review us, give us that 5-star review, tell us how much you love seeing Ben's face on YouTube or hearing the sounds of our voices. That stuff goes a long way. So make sure you do all that stuff. Other than that, I think we're all right. You had made comments to me about I'm a little long-winded, and I was like, I don't think it's that bad. But
Henry Wordsworth Longfellow over here with some questions. Sometimes I really got to land the plane. I don't land it sometimes.
I've got the green light now to just tell you to shut it.
Yes, and, you do.
I will be taking advantage of that at some point. I don't know when.
Probably in a really high-profile interview when we get somebody that we shouldn't do it in, you'll cut me off in the middle of a question. Yeah, we get Bill Guerin on here, and I'm asking him a question, you just slam your hand on the table.
Say, Ben, that's enough.
Ben, that's enough. Bill doesn't have enough time.
Bill doesn't need the backstory to your question, and it's a whole thing.
My 4th was great. I'd love to share this on the podcast because it's something my family has done for a long time, and I won't get into the immense details of it, and it's going to sound to use your word, a little bit like a lunatic thing, but we do every year as a family, my family, and my wife has been forced to walk into this as marrying into the family. There's parades everywhere during the 4th of July. My family goes up to a lake place, and there's a boat parade, and has been for years. And usually everybody will decorate their boats very American themed and very 4th of July themed, and we did that as well. And I don't know how this ever started. One year, my family's very theatrical and artistic, and so we have literally in my parents' house, there is a costume room full of, because my sisters have danced and performed. My mom has danced and performed.
I'm looking at his face, and I think continue.
So at one point, we decided to dress up like pirates for the parade, and just I don't know why. It wasn't non-patriotic by any means, though. By saying it out loud, it kind of seems non-patriotic. The next year after we did the pirate thing, there was another pirate boat, and we didn't like that because we're very much. I mean, that's why. I'm in broadcasting, right?
Sure.
You want to be on television. We're very much. We want to be the star of the show, and so that every year thereafter, we've done a different theme. So we've done Star Wars, Peter Pan. We have done. We've done Little Mermaid, big Disney family, all kinds of these different. We did a Rock the Boat theme one year. I dressed up as Angus Young, and it's kind of become this little. It's a small lake, so we kind of know everybody on the lake.
Sure.
And this year we did a Western themed. So we had 6 shooters, and my dad, who's a huge Clint Eastwood fan, I looked almost identical to Josie Wales and Clint Eastwood. So if you look hard enough, you might be able to find some pictures of that. I don't have a Facebook anymore, so you'd have to really do some digging and creeping, but they're around.
Well, let's make this real easy for everybody. Ben, go get us all of those pictures dating back to Star Wars. So as you're rattling them off here, Marquise can just super boom, 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 boom.
I have to double check with my family to make sure they're okay with that, but. So that's something I look forward to every year because there's music, and my sister who moonlights as a dance instructor. She'll come up with a dance number that we'll do to a music. It's a whole grandiose.
Is there video you guys dancing somewhere? I need all of this.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a huge treasure. It's a treasure trail of content for our family. But so that's something we look forward to every year. But got to do. It's funny. My in-laws' side is very very simple, and it's a nice balance because my family side, it's always crazy, and there's all this planning that goes into it, and then on the in-laws side, it's very simple, and we just sit around and we talk and have good conversation and eat good meals. And so it's a nice duality because we get the front end is you kind of relax with the in-laws, it's good, it's simple,
yin and yang.
Yes, and then you go to my family and it's bonkers for 48 hours. But long story short, again, I was long-winded, but that's usually what my 4th of July consists of every year.
I've also got to add, I don't know how I brush past this. So our 4th of July party every year, it's kind of like we try to do it big and we have a lot of fun with it. We don't have fireworks or anything like that, but this was our 10th anniversary of this 4th of July party. It started years ago when my parents were out of town. Me and my brother started it, and it kind of took off. We have all kinds of food, like it's too much food, good drinks, like it's a whole thing. But with it being the 10th year, last year I have a note in my phone. And it's from July 4th last year, so 2021, at about 6 o'clock at night. So we've been having a good time all day. We had a hot dog eating contest this year at our house. And let me tell you, I have so much respect for Joey Chestnut and
baby.
What he does year in and year out because, this year was a down year for Joey Chestnut. He ate 60-something hot dogs. I know he had a boot on, and he had to choke out a protester in the middle of it. Amazing, by the way, that he's able to do all that and still win by 20 hot dogs. It's down year, but to eat that many hot dogs in 10 minutes, I ate 4 in 10 minutes, and I wanted to die. So, I don't know how they do it, but it's unbelievable, and that was a lot of fun. The winner in our contest ate, I think, 10 and a half hot dogs in 10 minutes.
For an amateur, that's really impressive.
Which was, I don't know. I did learn this year, though, watching the hot dog eating contest. It's like the Super Bowl and the hot dog eating contest are two must-watch things for me every year. But I learned that condiments are optional, and I felt like thinking back to our party, like if I had mustard or something on a hot dog, I would have been able to eat way more. I
so.
went to the baseball game and had 4 Coney Island hot dogs. I was like, I could pop 4 more of these easy. Just the plain hot dogs, man.
Did you dip it in water?
Disgusting.
Yeah,
so
that sounds really nasty.
It starts, and I grab 2 hot dogs out of the buns. I start eating those, and then I'm like, all right, I got to dunk the buns and go. That was the last time I did that. Just the wet, soggy bun is terrible. So I don't know. There's talks about our next year's 4th of July party. Probably not going to do a hot dog eating contest, but this eating contest thing might come back up. Don't know what we're going to do. My brother emceed the whole thing. He had everybody in stitches. That was probably part of the reason why hot dogs were not consumed in high amounts, because everybody was laughing while they were eating. But I have a picture somewhere of the grill at home, and we had like 80 hot dogs on the grill because we didn't know how many we were going to need. I think everybody thought they were going to eat more than they did, but yeah. So that was a lot of fun. So like you guys, we kind of
there you have it. There's a Goldstein 4th of July family tradition, a Gisleson 4th of July family tradition. If anybody else has great family traditions out there that are listening over the 4th of July, tweet us, direct message us. We'd love to hear about them. You brought up the anniversary. You said 10 years?
Yeah,
you said for
10 years.
What a great transition into a new segment we're going to be introing here, as presented by our sponsor, Explore Minnesota. 10-year tidbits presented by Explore Minnesota. ExploreMinnesota.com is the best resource for your next summer getaway. Discover the great outdoors, iconic must-see destinations, places to stay, and activities of all kinds. Plus, you'll want to discover hundreds of events and concerts from around the state. Enter your dream state by visiting ExploreMinnesota.com. Joey, this was your brainchild, the 10-year tidbits. Give us a little bit of a preamble, and then we'll get to those tidbits.
Yeah, so the thought was, obviously with it being our 10-year anniversary, just trying to let the listeners and the viewers know, like, what are things they should be aware of over the next week, basically leading into our next episode. What were some things that happened in the past week, or things we may have missed from episode to episode, things people should be aware of. So this could be news on promotions. It could be news on our staff, like if we've got new staff that join us, or we have internal promotions from within. It could be Iowa Wild news. It could be just AHL news, Minnesota Wild news, NHL news, anything that's kind of big and noteworthy that we think everybody should be aware of. We're going to try and throw those things down. It could be, you may have 10-year tidbits. It might be 1 or 2 things in one week. It might be a week where there's a little bit more. I think this week we've got kind of 5 things to really hit on. So, we'll roll through them and see what we got.
Tidbit number 1, the Flower does not say bonjour to Minnesota. He returns. Is bonjour? Is that goodbye, or is that
Au revoir?
Hello? Au revoir. Thank you. There we go. Can't speak French. Learned that this week.
Those are the only 2 words.
Yeah,
I
did
know.
not say au
And
revoir. I was trying to be so clever with that, and it just crashed and burned. But anyway, Marc-Andre Fleury has re-signed a 2 years, $7 million deal, 3.5 AAV, which is a good number. It's not one that's going to crunch the cap, even more crunched than it is for Minnesota. Obviously, we were talking about it all summer internally. If Fleury does not come back, all of a sudden you've got Talbot and Hunter Jones and Jesper Wallstedt, and those are kind of your guys right now. Mm-hmm. Derek Baribeau has not been re-signed. So Fleury coming back solidifies a lot. If they can iron out what the media reports to be issues between Cam Talbot and Bill Guerin. Bill Guerin doesn't seem to think there's issues between Cam Talbot and Bill Guerin, which I tend to agree with Bill Guerin more than I would agree with the media on, only because sometimes the media does tend to blow things up a little bit as a member of the media myself, though I do work for an organization. But that's a heck of a 1-2 punch. Cam Talbot, you hope, can have somewhat of the similar year that he had last year. It was probably, I don't know the numbers in front of me, probably his best statistical year he's ever had. He was an all-star. Mm-hmm. But that's a great 1-2 punch, and it's an opportunity, I think, for Marc-Andre Fleury. I think, as it was reported, he wants to win and he wants what's best for his family. He would not have re-signed if he didn't think, 1, Minnesota couldn't win, and 2, if he didn't like Minnesota. So a nice vote of confidence for a destination that does catch some flack sometimes around the league for being a place that, Minnesota can't sign these big free agents. They can't get these players because they don't want to live in Minnesota, or they don't think Minnesota can win. And those 2 things were reasons why Marc-Andre Fleury was looking to sign somewhere. he signs in Minnesota. So to me, that's a slam dunk deal. I'm excited about it. It really solidifies the back end for Minnesota, which you have to have it to win. It's period. There's no, you can sneak away without it. You have to have goaltending to win. And to me, it seems like those two options are great options. And I'd imagine they'll hope to ride both of them on different months, different stanzas of the season, depending on how they're playing. And that'll be a great backstop for the Wild.
Yeah, you can play the hot hand at that point. And I'm sure, listen, if you're Cam Talbot, I'm sure to some degree, like nobody wants to have to split time, right? That's not ideal. But Bill Guerin doesn't seem too concerned with it, so I don't think anybody else should be too concerned with it. You're in a great spot. You have two starting caliber goaltenders to backstop you throughout the season, and clearly that's where Bill Guerin wants to build that team out from the back end, and I think it's a great pickup for bringing him back. I think that's fantastic. Obviously, he's the guy that everybody was hoping for. Now you don't have to worry about trying to go into the UFA market for goalies, which is very thin this year. So, there's not a whole lot out there. So, I mean, you guys got – Minnesota gets the highest caliber free agent goalie who's out there, I think. So, being able to bring him back, that's a huge get for Minnesota. And then they also re-signed Jake Middleton, which I think is probably an underrated sign. Mids is my guy. I had him out in San Jose. He was fantastic. Great personality, obviously, which everybody I think has seen. The mustache, the missing teeth. He's got that look. Obviously, the fans have loved him, but he's a guy who was undrafted. He would joke that he was the pick before Connor McDavid, which I guess is true because he was the last pick the year before McDavid went. So that's his claim to fame. But he was the late guy, late bloomer, played through the American Hockey League, put in his time, AHL All-Star, gets that NHL contract, gets a little bit of time here and there, gets hurt, and then all of a sudden he's playing first pairing minutes in San Jose, really cementing himself as that, defensive presence. He's not going to ever wow you with his offensive numbers or anything like that. Big on the PK, Minnesota goes and gets him and comes out here and plays with Jared Spurgeon, and the two of them just mesh like they've been playing together for 15 years. Bring him back for another 3 years. So I think really solidifying that back end is going to help this team. Now, I do know on the flip side there's only a little bit of cap space left. So it's what do they do? I know they're hoping that Marco Rossi can eat a very small bit of that and jump into that top six role, maybe replacing where Fiala was, playing with Boldy. But you got a little bit of money to go and get that middle six guy. So be interesting to see what they do, if there's any way for them to clear more room. I don't know if there are any plans for that, but free agency opens up. You're listening to this on Tuesday, so it's going to open up tomorrow on Wednesday. So that's always fun, that free agency flurry. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
I was looking through the UFAs, and one guy that piqued my interest was Val Nichushkin with Colorado. I think he was maybe in the 3 range right now. He'll go up higher than that. And I don't know off the top of my head what the cap space is for Minnesota, but he's a guy that I looked at and went, I wonder if he could be a potential fit. So if that does happen, we can go ahead and say you heard it here first, but I have absolutely no idea if they're even at all entertaining him by any stretch of the imagination. But another good transition into another one of our tidbits. Development camp is this week. You talk about Marco Rossi. He and Adam Beckman will be the two captains at development camp. It's a great week. It's a fun week because it's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed young players. It's guys that are, for many of these people, it might be their first real introduction to pro hockey if they're coming out of junior, if they're coming out of amateur hockey. It's the who's next of the Minnesota Wild, and for us here in Iowa, it's maybe the who's next in the very short-term future. With the signing of Fleury and Talbot likely still being around, it does make you wonder if the plan is to start Jesper Wallstad here in Iowa. I don't know that to be true or not true, but that's an exciting prospect, obviously, as a first-round pick last year. And a goaltending first-round pick, which when you have that, it usually means that you're putting a lot of your eggs into this young man's basket at some point in their career. But Wallstead will be there. I'm going to be headed up to see a couple of days at camp, so I'm thrilled to get to watch him in person and to see what his goaltending acumen looks like. We get to see Brock Faber's going to be there, who, of course, came over in the Fiala trade. There's some names that some Wild fans will be familiar with. Damon Hunt will be there. He was with the team during the shortened COVID season as a defenseman. You've also got Ryan O'Rourke there. Carson Lambos is a first-round pick. So it's a who's who of who's next for the Minnesota Wild. So that's an exciting week. for us to have and for the organization to have. And I know that I'm greatly looking forward to getting to see some of this talent. And it's such a great week, and there's more than just than practices and skates. I think they're maybe doing a volleyball game. I think they're going to do some go-kart racing. So it's not only a chance to see all these players in the flesh, but it's a chance to get all of them introduced to each other. You get also some players there that are not drafted. You get some invite players. So for those players, those guys have to be just so amped up, which we'll talk about literally this exact scenario with Nate Prosser, who was a guy who was an undrafted free agent that came to development camps and then eventually signed with Minnesota Wild. He's, of course, our guest today. He talks about development camp and those processes as well, which is fun. But a fun week for the development camp side. But Joey, I want to shift gears to you to talk about 10-year branding, because that was another thing that came out. Apologize for the long intro, but we are making up for 2 weeks of lost time.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. So, so as many of you have already seen, it's our 10th anniversary season, so we're getting very excited for that, which will really truly kick off here in the fall. But that 10-year branding's come out. We got a whole new look and feel, which our graphic designer Travis has been working on, which is outstanding.
Tremendous.
And then the logo, which really the feedback I've seen is fantastic. We had a lot of people from around our league, but some people I worked with in San Jose on the NHL side who have now scattered around the league, around the NHL, who had sent a lot of compliments about the logo and whatnot, just how we worked the 10 into Iowa and kept the shape of the state worked in there as well. And it's just a clean look, clean feel. So I'm excited to finally have that out there. We've obviously been sitting on it for a little bit, waiting for that right moment to put it out for people to see. But now that it's out there, we can talk about it. Obviously, those patches will be on jerseys and whatnot, and there's going to be merch and all kinds of things that'll come with that as the season progresses. But excited to really start focusing on 10 years in Des Moines, growing the sport of hockey over in this state over 10 years, really connecting with the community over 10 years. There's been a lot of good work done here, so it's highlighting all of that and then looking forward to, what are the next 10 going to look like? What are we going to do, in the future? So a lot of fun things, a lot of exciting things coming up. And now that we're in the swing of it, we'll start rolling that out here as we get closer to October 14th. It's coming up quick.
And there on October 14th will be a player who Iowa Wild fans have really gotten to know and like over the last several seasons. Defenseman Turner Ottenbright signs an AHL deal on Monday. That's a great re-signing. It was one that I figured would get done quickly. He likes it here. They like him. No surprise that when I was given the green light to write this, he was the first player I thought we might hear about, and lo and behold, he is. Just as solid and dependable as you could ask for. Plays such a nasty style of hockey, which again that I love on the broadcast. I talk about it a lot, but he's big, 6'3", 195, and had a career year last year. I mean, 68 games, that almost tripled his output previously in the American Hockey League. He had 20 points on the year, 17 assists. He came up with some really big plays during the year. It was not just a season, even though he is known for blocking shots and being physical and fighting if he has to and playing that middle defenseman role, 3-4 spot, and doing it very, very well. But he came up with some really big plays and some big offensive plays when he needed to last year. So excited to have Turner back. He's a tremendous kid too, and it's just a good dude to have in the locker room as well. So that's a great first building block to have for your team next year. Especially for a team that will likely have some younger defensemen too. You might see Ryan O'Rourke, Damon Hunt, maybe Carson Lambos, depending on where they think those players are at. And you're going to need players that get pro hockey, that get life here in Iowa, that get, he's seen other people that have come and gone that have made their way to the NHL, even though he hasn't been someone that's done that potentially yet. But that's a huge get, I think, for Iowa, and I'm excited, obviously, to have Turner back, not only on the ice, but off the ice, too. Yeah,
I mean, he's a guy who played in pretty much almost every game throughout the season. Was he one of the guys who was out with COVID at one point? Like, there was a reason he missed time. It wasn't because,
he might have been.
It wasn't because they pulled him out of the lineup. If he was healthy, he was in,
Correct.
and he was a guy who was getting a lot of ice time. Like you said, he had a career year, big offensive numbers, but big in comparison to what he had put up before. I think a good comparison for Turner Ottenbright is Jake Middleton. He is
well done.
He is the Iowa Wild's version of Jake Middleton. He's not going to wow you offensively, but he's reliable. He's going to be there on the back end. He's physical. He's going to block shots. He's going to stick up for his teammates. He's going to do that. He's a guy you can trust on the penalty kill. He's your version of Jake Middleton here in Iowa, and I think it's a great piece to have back for all those reasons you said.
To finish on our 10-year tidbits before we get to a little bit of a short intro on Nate Prosser, which was a terrific interview. The draft that happened last week, the Minnesota Wild selecting 8 players in the draft, and one thing I noted was, is there a pipeline starting between Bill Guerin and the Swedish Hockey League? You had Jesper Wallstedt last year. This year it's Liam Ogren from Djurgårdens, left winger who from all I've never seen him play, from what I can read, from what Russo's written about him or what you've seen in the press releases. Big frame, big shot are the two things I've heard, and those things are always enticing, I think, for a power forward perspective. From a forward look, in my opinion, I love watching power forwards the most of anything because I think they have the most single-handed ability to change a game, with the exception of a McDavid or these generational players. But when you're looking at more the non-generational players, but the high-end players that can change the scope of your offense, a power forward type player, Liam Ogren could do that, and then they had Danila Yurov as well. I don't know as much about him, didn't read into him as much as I did about Ogren. Those are your 2 first-round picks, and then 6 other picks from there the next day. But every team leaves the draft, and they all think they had a great draft, but I'm very excited to get up to development camp and to get a chance to rub elbows, probably not with Bill Guerin as much, but with some of the other people, to talk to Mike Murray a little bit too, and to maybe talk to Judd Brackett, the director of amateur scouting, and see a little bit more and get a little more detail on who some of these kids are and maybe who are they comparing them to, who do they think maybe they could turn out to be in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, these are guys we won't see them here in Iowa for a couple of years, but obviously they're going to be up at development camp, so if you're an Iowa Wild fan, like, take the trip up. Practices are free to the public. 3-on-3 is free to the public. I think I can't sit here and talk about the prospects. I don't know anything about really most of these kids that they picked, aside from what the reports have come out, what they said in the draft and whatnot. But having, I think it was 6 picks. I mean, you had 2 first rounds, 2 second rounds, 2 third rounds, if I'm not mistaken, within the top 60. Like,
yeah, 4 in the top 60.
Yeah, 4 in the top 60. That's high-level talent.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, and not only that, but it's not like, you mentioned the pipeline between the Swedish Hockey League. It's not all concentrated just in Swedish Hockey League. I think they took a player from every league across the world, basically. They took guys who are going to play NCAA hockey. They took guys in the USHL, the Swedish Hockey League. They took guys from the KHL. Like, they took guys from all the major junior leagues. Like, everywhere is kind of covered. And I know I heard Judd Brackett talk about it, where it's like, that's just a credit to the scouting department that everybody's pulling the same line. Everybody's going the same direction. PJ Fleck, everybody's rowing the boat. Everybody's doing their thing. To
Gopher reference.
Listen, I know what I'm doing here. So everybody's kind of pulling in the same direction, which I think is what you want. Everybody's got the right mindset, and everybody's pushing towards the same thing. And so big credit to Bill and Judd Brackett for making that happen.
Now, you nailed it. OHL, QMJHL, USHL, WHL, KHL, mentioned the Swedish Hockey League, and then even the Alberta Junior Hockey League, a not-so-drafted from league. Not that there haven't been players that have come out of there, but you don't compare those leagues to the major junior as much as you do maybe the AJHL, closer to maybe the North American Hockey League in the United States, for those familiar with those leagues. But so a good draft by all accounts. Someone who was not drafted and who came out of NCAA college hockey with the Colorado College Tigers, Nate Prosser. He was here with the Iowa Wild in 2018-19. Also predated Iowa. His AHL career started with the Houston Aeros in 2011. I know we have some Aeros fans that are still with us that will remember Nate Prosser from the best season any minor league affiliate of the Minnesota Wild has ever had, going to the Calder Cup Finals that year and losing to Binghamton. But when we were talking about Nate Prosser, after we got done with the interview, you and I are big personalities, and we like to bring out these great stories and have a lot of laughs. Not that we didn't laugh with Nate, but the one thing that shines true in this interview to me, and it's no surprise because when I was reaching out to people to try to get some tidbits on Nate, the one thing that came across from every single person is one of, if not the kindest, nicest person you'll meet in hockey, and that was very evident from the beginning of the interview to the end of our interview that we did with him.
Yeah, he was. I mean, same with me. I reaching out to people who have played with him or know him, and it's the same thing. He's a tremendous person. He's humble, and he's just great locker room guy, a great leader. Someone you want to help mold your younger prospects. It's just the kind of the role he turned into later in his career. But I had a great time talking with him, hearing about kind of his journey and really that Calder Cup run that they went on it was great to hear about, because it's one of those, he had mentioned it, where it's like it was one of those things where everybody just kind of showed up and they were just, everybody was committed. Sometimes you can get in the American League where guys are worried about the next call up, things like that. No, these guys, they are here, and their goal was truly, we're going to win the Calder Cup, and that's what everybody pushed for. Everybody went in the same direction. So hearing him talk about just how natural it was for all those guys to connect and have a good time together, I mean, that's always fun to hear about, because those teams that win or go to the finals, like, they are very, very tight-knit groups. And if you don't have that, you never hear of a team that won or went to the finals that wasn't a close group off the ice. And these guys seem to check all those boxes. So I'm excited for everybody to hear it. That may be a little different than some of the interviews we've done already, but certainly insightful, and I think people are going to love it.
And some spectacular lessons for the young hockey player out there. Mom and Dad, if you're listening, or if any of these players are listening, this is a really good one, because some of the stuff he says, no matter if you're the best player on your team or the worst player on your team, you can use what he talks about, because he talks about that, how he was never the best anywhere he went. He was never the best player, but he just kept working, and he kept learning, and he kept earning himself more ice time. So really, really good stuff from Nate Prosser. After the interview, we do have the long-awaited Keeping Up with the Kardashians report. I'm ready for that.
So excited.
So if you the only reason you're tuning in is to hear me talk about Keeping Up with the Kardashians, you'll have to wait until after the Nate Prosser interviews. Do wait, do listen to it. It's great. So without any further ado, let's head into the second period and talk with former Iowa Wild and Minnesota Wild defenseman Nate Prosser. Our next guest aboard the bus on the Ridin the Bus podcast is former defenseman for not only the Minnesota Wild, the Philadelphia Flyers, briefly the St. Louis Blues, but especially here with the Iowa Wild and the Houston Aeros. And from what I've been told, one hell of a nice guy, Nate Prosser. Nate, it's great to have you aboard the bus with us, and thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on and chuck some cards around with you guys.
That's a perfect segue to our first question that we begin with for everybody. We are on the bus. We want to make our listeners and our viewers feel like they're on the bus with us. So when you think about your time on the bus, is there one particular story that comes up that you think back on and think, boy, I can't believe this happened and I was on the bus for this moment?
You know what? There's not like one specific memory. The best memories I have of hockey in general is like the plane rides and the bus rides. Honestly, like that's what I miss the most are the road trips, which is kind of funny, because people think, okay, people probably just sleep on the bus and you want to get from point A to point B as quick as you can. But we really enjoyed our time on the bus. We, especially in Iowa and in Houston, like we'd stop and, load up on snacks and, try to keep it as healthy as possible, obviously. But we played a lot of cards, a lot of, 7 up, 7 down and schnarps. And I was able to get to the back of the bus pretty quick to, sharpen the card game. And I love playing cards, all kinds of games. And I think those are definitely the memories I'll cherish the most.
When you were with the Iowa Wild, who was the card shark and who was the card, I don't know, do you want to say flounder? What's a lame fish, Joey? I mean, is there what's the antithesis of a card shark?
Flounder sounds too bad.
Yeah.
Was there a best and a worst
shark
player?
Yeah, no, I think Cal O'Reilly, he always does well. Matt Barkowski was decent. I'm trying to think. Andrew Hammond was all right. Leambus seemed to pay out. Matt Reed was decent. I'd say Cal O'Reilly and Matt Reed were probably the top two. I think that they just knew the game. They were playing it for a long time all year. And I came down to Iowa a little later, and I had to get readjusted to that game. I was playing. We played a lot of like cribbage on the plane with Minnesota and Texas Hold'em, and then going to the Iowa Wild. They're more 7 up, 7 down. So again, like I was all for any game, and let's just check some cards around to pass time and to exchange a few 20s or 100s, whatever it may be.
We're going to talk a lot of stories here today, Nate. I do want to go back, though, and really walk a little bit through your career and go all the way back to another organization and team that you did ride buses on, and that was with the Elk River Elks. One of the players that, as a Minnesotan myself, when I think about Elk River, I think about yourself. I also think about Paul Martin. In a one-on-one game, who do you think would have the best of that one-on-one battle? You or Paul Martin? Who would take that championship trophy?
I don't think anyone's ever asked me that question. I mean, he's so dang silky smooth. In all of his career, I loved watching that guy, and I never saw him get hit or throw a hit. He's just kind of buttery, smooth, head up, making nice little plays through the middle and to the wingers. And I mean, it'd have to go him. I'm more kind of probably reckless, I guess you can say, even though I was good positionally, but he was kind of my idol growing up. He was like 5 years older than me, so I was able to watch him through all my youth, and especially in high school, he didn't leave the ice. Like, I think the coach even said, I'd rather have Paul Martin on the ice at 60% than a couple of the other guys 100, which is a big shot at the other guys, but it just goes to show how good he was. And I still skate with him on outdoor rinks here at like Justin Mornow's house, and he's still like that same player, making like little soft, little silky passes, and just a surgeon out there.
I clearly, you just mentioned Justin Morneau. Obviously, you're wearing the Twins hat. You're a big Twins guy. How do we feel about the Twins this year? Is this their year? I know they made some moves. They brought in Correa. So, do we think they got a chance to make some noise? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I love having them on. They're my team in the summer, and I have them on almost nightly, just when I'm grilling or making dinner or something. And over the last couple of weeks, we've blown some games against Cleveland and the White Sox with our bullpen. So it'd be cool if we added an arm or two in there, but I like our hitting. I like a rise at the top. That guy is just a base hit muncher. And then you got Buxton, crushing the ball right now. I think he's got 22 bombs. So and then you throw Correa in there and Gio Urshela. That guy. I mean, I love that guy too. And so I don't know. I love the Twins. They're probably my favorite sports team in general. And I've just always liked that they're the underdog, and obviously some heartbreaking losses against the Yankees all the time, but you never know. Just get into the playoffs and you never know what happens. I mean, you see that in the NHL all the time, 8 seeds and 7 seeds making runs, and it's kind of similar to that with the MLB.
Mm-hmm. So, hometown guy from Minnesota. So, getting you're an undrafted player, getting the opportunity to sign with the Wild. What was that experience like for you? What did your family think of the whole thing? I mean, walk us through it.
Yeah, I remember signing day like it was yesterday, honestly. And it was, I think it was 12 years ago, something like that, 13 years ago or something. So yeah, I was kind of I was the underdog. I was kind of a late bloomer. I was 5'2" until I hit my growth spurt in 9th to 10th grade. So I went through puberty late, not to get into too crazy detail, but I was just a late bloomer. So I didn't make a lot of the big AAA teams and select 15, 16, 17s. I didn't make any of those teams. I started to get on teams' radars probably around when I was 17, and that's when I was able to go to the USHL and play for the Sioux Falls Stampede. And I think from age 17 to 24, all the way through my 4 years at Colorado College, I just continued to grow and get stronger and faster, and kind of develop and build my game. And so my last game at Colorado College, we were up in Duluth, and it was a game, we played a series of 3. It was game 3, and we lost. And my agent came up to me after the game. He's like, well, you got some interest right out of the hop. I've been talking with a few scouts and everything. I'm like, okay, like, what does that mean? He's like, well, instead of going back with your team, come down to the Twin Cities with us, and we got some things to discuss. So I did that, and there's a period of probably 5 days to a week there where we're just kind of seeing where that interest was. Being undrafted, having a few good years in the WCHA was I was able to kind of have a few teams that were interested. I think 5 or 6 teams. So just so happened that Minnesota Wild was one of them, and I just felt like that route was going to be the best one for me because they wanted me to come play in the NHL right away. And I just remember when we did finally do that, I was at my old house in Elk River. It was me, my mom, and my brother. I don't know where my dad and sister were on that day, but as us 3 were out in the driveway, and Chuck Fletcher calls, and we agreed to sign there, and he's like, well, get on the plane. We're in Columbus tomorrow. So I'm like, oh my gosh. And just like the tears and the happiness just started flowing. We all started hugging each other and kind of jumping up and down. And, just kind of just being the underdog and the guy that was almost always kind of looked over all my life. I wasn't supposed to make it to the NHL, and I was never supposed to, sign an NHL deal. So it is just kind of a truly special moment for me and obviously my family. And it was one of those days that I'll always remember as, I remember it was sunny out. The birds were chirping, literally, like, it was like, I don't know, God smiling down on us that day and just saying, hey, this is the reward. And, it was something special for me and my family.
You said you're not a guy who probably should have been in the NHL. I mean, what do you think it is about the way you played through your time at Colorado College? What do you think it is that got you to the next step?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, the coaches and the staff and the strength trainers, I was able to develop there. Playing WCHA was the best league for a lot of years, and especially through my years. We got the Gophers in North Dakota and Denver and Duluth and Mankato and St. Cloud in Wisconsin. It was literally every weekend you're playing against the best of the best in college hockey. So I think, just being able to be in that league and on that team and just getting physically stronger, I think will help me a lot. And through those years, I think after my sophomore year, I went to development camp. And after my junior year, I went to development camp. I went to the Islanders and the Blues and then the Wild. I think I went to 3 development camps, and I just felt like I something in me wanted to see where I lined up against the Europeans and the Canadians and the first and second rounders. And I think, going there and playing well and seeing like I'm not too far off almost put some kind of fire in me to be like, okay, if I'm this close to this, first or second round prospect defenseman on the Islanders or the Blues, I got to push it a little bit more to get to that level. And so I always kind of had that inner drive in me to, outwork my opponent. And, I think something I always prided myself on was my work ethic and my attitude. And I think those two definitely helped me. It's so cliche to say because everyone can say those two things, but honestly, it was like if growing up, if I knew a Blades player was working this hard, I knew I had to work this hard. And it has to come from within. It can't come from your dad or your mom or your agent or your grandpa. That drive to make the NHL. I tell kids all this all the time is like I played with thousands of pro players. Not one of them had a bad work ethic. Everyone works their balls off. It's like there's no cutting corners. There's no trying to get by doing 6 reps instead of 8. It's you have to put in the work to get there, and I pride myself on putting in that extra work.
My last Minnesota question before I turn it over to Ben. So throughout your career, not necessarily known as a goal scorer, but in 2012, you sign a contract extension and then you make this guarantee with the media. You make this promise. Can you walk us through your thought process behind saying, I'm going to go out, I'm going to score a goal ahead of my, in the next game, and then going out and actually doing it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that was more of like kind of joking around, just exactly like you said. I don't know. It was my first goal is in Columbus, and I don't know. I think I was just more goofing around with my teammates, and maybe they took it as like, okay, like he's guaranteeing it. But I remember that goal like it was yesterday as well. Like just puck went out to Justin Falk on the left point. He moved it across. I kind of went off the sideboards, and I one-timed it off the end boards, and just kind of happy that went in. And guys after were like, you shouldn't have signed yet. You should have scored first, and then your price would have went up a little bit. Every goal is another $100,000 or whatever. But no, I don't know. We just kind of made a joke of it. But signing that first one-way contract was obviously something special as well. Just again, I never thought I was going to play in the NHL, and to make a career of it, it was a dream come true for sure. I thought, I would, give pro hockey a try, even after we lost it in Duluth, and then I signed this. So I'm like, okay, maybe this lasts for 2 to 3 years, and I move on and, go get into the business world or something like that. I'd still be extremely happy with that. But I just found a little role in a niche that a GM and a coach loved, and I just kind of rode with those guys.
Finding that role for you professionally began in 2011 with the Houston Aeros, a team that had an immense amount of success falling to the Binghamton Senators in the Calder Cup Finals. Looking at some of the names on that team, guys that went on to have great careers like you did, obviously Jared Spurgeon still playing, the captain of the Minnesota Wild. You got Marco Scandella on that team. I look across the ice, some of the guys you played against on that Senators team, Mike Hoffman, Robin Lehner, Eric Greiba, the list goes on. I mean, it was per usual in the AHL, a star-studded list of characters that maybe weren't stars yet, but they became so later. When you look back on that year and that time in Houston, who were maybe some of the mentors that you had that helped teach you how to be a pro? Because you talk to anybody who walks into pro hockey, and almost more so than the X's and O's or the on-ice stuff, some of the things people struggle with most is just becoming a pro and learning that pro lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up Houston, and honestly, like I have chills on my arms. Like it was one of those years that was so dang special. And I did a podcast yesterday with Jared Spurgeon. It's like all we talked about. It was like no year could replace it. I think in all my career, I played for 33 years of my life. I think my favorite year of hockey was playing in Houston, Texas, of all places. Like it was just one of those years where we were all kind of. They brought in all their prospects. It was kind of a younger team. We had Spurgeon and Noro and Scandella and Falk, Bagnall and Fredum, Wellman. And then, our older guys were like DeSalvatore, Jed Ortmeyer, Warren Peters, and Patrick O'Sullivan. And those guys were great leaders. The locker room gelled like I don't think I've ever seen before, especially in the American Hockey League, where, I don't know, it's almost like a spot where no one really wants to be, because if you're down there, you feel like you should be up, and everyone's goal is to get up. So no one really wants to be there. But in that instance, that season, it was like, I don't know, it's like magic, where like we all really enjoyed being a part of that team. And we all lived in the same apartment complex with, there was like a pool right in the middle where we get done with practice and we were in our shorts and flip-flops, and we'd all stop at, Whole Foods and grab meat and vegetables on the way home. And it was like a frat party outside this pool every day. And we'd, have, a couple drinks and grill our food. And I mean, like, what a life. Like I was down there with my wife, no kids yet. We, could go to an afternoon movie. Like we talk about it, like it was like, it's just a special, special time. I mean, I really wish we could have finished that thing off, but going back to all those names on our team and on Binghamton, it goes to show like GMs want winners. So having that special of a season to go that far, I mean, Minnesota probably was drooling to get all of us up that next season or the season after. Mike Yeo ended up going up the next year, and he kind of brought us all with him. And same with Binghamton. All those guys signed one-way deals after that year. And again, like there's something about being a part of a winning culture that people want. You always see that with the Stanley Cup winners. Like, if you win the Stanley Cup, you're guaranteed. I mean, pretty much guaranteed to play as long as you want after that, and sign your ticket, because winning is fun, and everyone wants that winner that knows what it takes to put their body on the line at that time. And it was a year that I'll never forget. We got such good advice from those older guys too. I remember like Patrick O'Sullivan and Jed Ortmeyer telling me, like, when you get that opportunity, you got to make the most of it. And everyone's going to get their chance. It's what you do to stay there that matters. And I don't know. There's so many kind of those special advice that I got from those guys that I took to heart, because I knew, being undrafted, I was swimming upstream. I knew if I did get that chance, I for sure needed to make the most of it. It couldn't be a vanilla game that, okay, he was okay. No, I mean, they needed to see something in me that they didn't want to get rid of. So, getting advice from those guys was huge. Just because they knew what it was like to play in the NHL, and they knew what it was like to play in the AHL, and they knew, okay, life on the private plane is a lot better than on the bus, and do what you can to stay on that PJ.
And that opportunity came the following season, promoted permanently to the Minnesota Wild, and a terrific career from there. 365 National Hockey League games played, most of them with the Minnesota Wild. I want to harken back, though, to early on. I've heard it wasn't your first shift story, but close to your first shift, you lined up against Jerome Iginla. And there's a story that follows lining up against Jerome Iginla. What more can you tell us about what happened after that puck dropped?
Yeah, it's actually in overtime. It was 4-on-4, and I got put out there to start the overtime, and at least I think it was overtime. And I line up and I said, "What's up, Jerome?" And he's like, he had to like look around my back to see what my name was. And I mean, he had no idea. I mean, he's kind of he's everyone's idol growing up. He plays the game the right way. He played hard. He scored a ton of goals. And I think, I don't know, maybe I gave him a little whack too or something. So really it kind of like set him off and be like, okay, who is this little, punk, and it was special. But that was the kind of game I played. I played, kind of a gritty, chirping, in your face kind of game, and that helped me stay involved in games too, because I knew my career in the NHL when I played, I was always going to be on the third set and playing 10 or 14 minutes, and in order to do that and stay involved and invested in the game, I needed to, be chirping and in guys' ears. And it had started early with Iginla. That's my second game. My first game was in Edmonton, went well, got an assist and played well. And then my second game, like 2 nights later, was in Calgary, and I had to say what's up to Jerome. And then a couple nights later, I was at home against the Dallas Stars at the XL. So those are my first 3 games, and it just kind of got me on the radar. And then that next season, I was down in Houston for that year.
The chirping, when you talk about that, one thing I know that's interesting that you bring up chirping and playing with that grinding attitude, unlike, it's got to be almost 95 to 98% of hockey, you don't curse on the ice, which is an incredible accomplishment that you're able to, one, not curse on the ice. That takes incredible self-discipline. And secondly, how would you go about chirping without using cursing? Because when you hear chirping, if you see it on social media, there's a lot of blips and bleeps that have to be put in because normally there's a word or two that you can't put out there. So how did you navigate those waters? It's a pretty impressive stat.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably said a lot of dumb stuff, but I don't know. I just got laughs out of the guys on our bench and probably on the other bench. I like getting after, the skill guys on the other teams. Like I love getting after Drew Doughty. I mean, Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves. Like I love getting in their ear hole. Just those guys were the cat's pajamas all of their lives. And finally, like, no, they've never been chirped in their life. So like for me to say, Drew Doughty hits me in the ankle on a power play, I'd be, go up to him and tell him to pick his freaking head up. No one says that to Drew Doughty. He's never heard that in his entire life. So like it catches these guys off guard. Like even Patrick Kane, when I chirp him, all he could do is like kind of just look at me and like smile. Like he didn't know what else to do. Like, I mean, I don't know. I just loved it. It was the game inside the game for me. And I just loved like trying whatever I could to get these guys off their game, even though it probably didn't. But no, as far as curse, I would say I didn't curse on the ice. I mean, for sure I did. But I'm a faith first guy, and I wanted my opposing team to know that, and I wanted my teammates to know that. So I try to do that by leading by example, and but what stays on the ice, what happens on the ice stays on the ice. And no, for sure there was, there was some choice words for sure, but I tried to keep it as tame as I could. Yeah.
You brought up some big names there, and I always like asking this question to defensemen that have played at the highest level. Was there a scariest player that you had to take a rush against where if you were gapping up and you realized who it was, you went, oh boy, I have to be down to the inch on my gap here, or this guy's going to turn me inside out and throw my jockstrap on the ceiling?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, with pro hockey nowadays, there's video for days. So we did video on the skill guys in their teams, and there's 4 to 6 guys on every team in the NHL that probably needed a league above the NHL. That's how good they were. The skating ability, the skill level, I mean, you can't touch Patrick Kane. I mean, that guy is the most shiftiest guy, the best stick handler. I mean, when he comes down on you and he gets across the blue line, I mean, could you imagine me like lunging out at this guy? He'd make me look like a pylon. And I'm sure it happened a few times in my career, but I would say he's one. I mean, McDavid obviously is another with his speed. I mean, when he's coming through the neutral zone at full speed, it's like, oh my gosh, let's just try to let him stay the outside and take a shot from like the dot or something. I mean, let's not let him, turn me into a TSN turning point moment where I'm going to be all over the ESPN for a while. This guy's crazy, but like I said, like you had to do your work and your focus before any game. And again, like this is another thing that you got to work at and make sure you're doing, just because if you didn't, you got to know tendencies of your opponents. And I think we really harped on video for a lot of my years, and all my D coaches really loved showing us clips of certain guys, and there's, like I said, a handful on every team. I mean, literally, you can go down every team, and I can name 5 guys on every team that's just like, oh boy, okay, let's keep them to the outside when they're coming down full speed. We'll try keeping a tight gap at stepping up at the blue, but if not, let's keep them to the outside and take away passing lanes and try to get in the shooting lanes. And it's you're at the best league in the world, and the skill level is all there. And I just did a podcast with Devin Dubnyk too, and it was funny because every time Alex Ovechkin came into town, it's like Doobie would just say, "Oh boy, here comes the grade 8." It was like he even said at my podcast, it's the Ovi Auto 2. Like he already had 2 goals on him before the game even started because he's like such in his melon. It's just like it's crazy some of these guys and their skill set and their shooting ability.
You've talked about it with us playing in your hometown, playing for the Minnesota Wild, and all the joy that came with that. But I've talked with other players that have had the privilege of playing in their hometown states before, or hometown cities for Canadians, and there's another side to it as well. And I'm curious if you experienced this. There's pressure that comes with being a hometown guy, even as someone as you proclaim yourself as more of a depth defenseman. There is still pressure, and there might be more spotlight that comes on you playing in your hometown than when you were in Philly or when you were in St. Louis briefly or elsewhere. Did you ever feel that pressure that came with being an Elk River Minnesotan playing for the Minnesota Wild as opposed to a Saskatoon, Saskatchewan-born player playing in Minnesota?
Yeah, yes and no. I think I felt the pressure a little bit early on in my career. I think just being the younger guy and looking at Twitter and whatnot, it starts messing with me, and I had to shut that out for sure. I think there's just a lot of people in their sweatpants and Zubas in their basements that can type a lot of negative stuff on there that can get in your head. And so I had to kind of tune that out, but I think in my career, I've said this before, that I think I played every game like it was a tryout, because I was always like on a league minimum one-way deal or two-way deals. I was always the depth defenseman, number 6 or number 7. I always started the season as number 7 and kind of had to wait my turn. So when eventually I got my turn, I couldn't go in and play or have a bad week. It almost felt like maybe I put this pressure on myself, but I think it definitely helped me play longer and have a longer career, because in my mind, if I had a bad week, I was going to be playing for Iowa or playing in Houston. And I didn't want that. I wanted to stay in the NHL. I liked being in St. Paul and, having one mortgage and, having my family settled here and, having my parents and families and friends coming to every game. I really loved that. It was honestly like, it's a script. It was a dream come true. And I want to do everything I could to stay there. So if I played one, like I said, vanilla game, I knew that next game, balls out, needs to be my A game. Like I don't want a GM or assistant GM or anyone in the seats to be like, maybe we could replace him with the guy that's, putting up points in the minor league. And, he's our second rounder. We should give him a shot. No. I wanted to make sure, like, I'm going to hold this position. This is my spot. I'm going to freaking, do what I can to stay in this spot for as long as I can. And so I think that, internally, maybe that was more me putting that pressure on myself, but maybe I needed that drive again from myself to make sure that to continue to push myself to that level that I knew I could play at.
And it obviously worked. 6 strong seasons with Minnesota, playing in front of your hometown, friends and family and fans, before eventually winding up in the American Hockey League again here in Iowa. Same system, different town, different building, different team. I'm curious, you saw Houston, you saw Iowa. What was similar, what was different when you came back down for your second run through the American Hockey League here in Des Moines?
Yeah, weather different. No. I mean, both very well-run organizations. Tim Army was the coach down there, and very good, very, very detailed, very video-oriented. And we had that too with Houston with Mike Yeo. They both instilled a lot of confidence in me to go out and play, and kind of play freely. You don't want to grip the stick. You don't want to play tense. But very, very nice city, Des Moines. They have a great fan base. I'm not saying Houston didn't, because they did. They had that fan base as well. I mean, especially when we made that run the playoffs, like we were almost feeling like the Toyota Center. It was so much fun. But we win the playoffs in Iowa, and the fans are great there as well. And I tip my cap to both cities. Honestly, I think I was impressed both spots. So no gripes about riding the bus in either of those spots.
Did you have a favorite restaurant or golf course that you can remember? I know the guys spent a lot of time both in restaurants and on the links. I know I'm asking you to rack your brain here a little bit for one stop in many stops that you had in your career, but I'm always curious, and I know our fans like hearing too where some of the favorite haunts were for you when you were here.
Yeah, I lived above by like Target in West Des Moines. So is it Wellman's?
Yep.
So we'd stop over there quite a bit, and we were kind of in that area for the most part for the when the few months I was down there. Bonefish. I'm trying to think what else. There's a couple others I'm drawing a blank on though. What else is like right in that?
Trying to think. I don't think Bonefish might not even exist anymore. I don't spend a whole lot of time in the West Des Moines area. There's a Johnny's Steakhouse over there. That's a decent spot in one of the hotels that I've been to before. But and Wellman's is definitely a spot I know people spend a lot of time at. I know fans will laugh when they hear that. That's a good one.
There was a golf course a little north of the city that we played at that was super nice.
TCI, Tournament Club of Iowa. Beautiful course. Arnold Palmer designed that, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
In some way, shape, or form. Who knows how much he actually had to do with it, but it's a beautiful golf course.
Yeah, Bart was a big golfer, and so I kind of rode his coattails for a little while. And his family took off when we made playoffs because I think their lease was up, so he came and lived with me because my family, they stayed up in Minnesota just because it's kind of a short little stint. And so Bart moved in with me, and we kind of made our rounds a little bit to the golf courses in Wellman's every now and then. So, we had some fun and enjoyed our time together.
I got to spend a shortened season with Matt Bartkowski. What a gigantic character of a human he is. I heard a story from Mitch McLean about Bart, where on the golf course, I think they were playing for money, I believe, and on the 17th hole, he picked up McLean's ball and threw it in the water and said, "I get one throw per round." And Mitch said, "I've never heard of this rule." And he said, well, essentially, tough. This is a rule. Did you ever see him do that on the golf course? Employ a throw where you get to throw your opponent's golf ball wherever you want?
No, that sounds like a Bart move, though. He's a mutt. I could see that happening. But no, and I could also see Mitchie like not stepping up to him. Yeah, like Mitchie's a big dude. Like you got to confront your bullies every now and then. And Bart bullied him, but tell him like screw off. That's not the way it works here.
I have a couple more questions for you, Nate. You've been just so terrific and gracious with your time. I got to ask, when I say Saving Private Prosser, what comes to mind?
My stints with St. Louis. So not only once but twice I signed with St. Louis in the summer as a free agent. And the first time I didn't make the team out of camp, so I was put on waivers, and Minnesota claimed me back right away. So it was like in start of October, end of September, I was back with Minnesota. The second time, a couple years later, I signed with St. Louis. I make the team out of camp because Jay Bomeister broke his foot or something, and he was out for 2 to 3 months. So I stay on the team as like the number 7 defenseman, play one game, mainly just as an insurance policy type of guy, and spend a lot of time in the press box. Pretty natural. So Bomeister comes back, and it was around Thanksgiving, I want to say, and we just started this, chain talking with, Darby and the coaches and a few wild guys. And It was called Saving Private Processor, and to bring me back, across enemy lines, and I signed with the enemy, and they needed to bring me back, and I was like a wounded soldier. You got to bring me back, and just so happened that they were playing in St. Louis, and I was put on waivers, and I got claimed back by Minnesota, and we ended up playing at home against St. Louis a couple nights later. It was like a home and home. And so my first game back with Minnesota was against St. Louis, the team I was kind of playing on. I mean, it was just kind of like a freaky, fluky thing. And but no, Saving Private Processor, that'll be singed in my brain for a while. It was a special moment. That was a moment I'll definitely remember as well. It was like nothing changed. I came back. Had the same locker, same change stall, giving everyone hugs and, seeing everyone's big smiles and, trainers and coaches and Zamboni driver. And it was like, again, it was like I was never left. And that day was super special for me.
There's a good amount of time in Minnesota, but in St. Louis, in Philadelphia, in Iowa, this time it can be tough for family. But one thing I want to talk to you about, you're a girl dad. You got 4 girls. So what's it like being a girl dad? Are they into hockey? Do any of them play? Like what's that been like for you? Because I'm sure, as a guy, everybody you hope you have a young boy someday who can play hockey. You get 4 girls. So what's that been like?
I know. Yeah, I got 4 girls just because I kept trying. I just wanted that boy to, throw that football around with and teach a slap shot. No, but I got 4 athletic daughters, and my house is full of glitter and pink. And but I wouldn't change it for the world. They're great. And my older 2 play hockey. I got a 9, 8, 6, 3-year-old. So the 9 and the 8-year-old were on the same 8U team in Wayzata this year, and I've never been able to coach them, so they're begging for me to be on the ice. So I coached that team. It was super fun. We had a good year, and they do a lot of other sports as well. What was crazy, they played hockey and basketball. My wife played basketball and tennis, so she's trying to push the basketball thing on them, and I'm saying, hey, get into hockey if you'd like it, and so they did both, and our heads were spinning. So we got to kind of figure that winter sport out, but. My oldest plays lacrosse as well and volleyball. My second plays, she's big into soccer, and they're both into swimming. They're on a swim team. My third one just started soccer the last couple summers, and we'll probably get her into skating this winter. So yeah, I mean, basically it's just been an Uber driver this last year, and like it's been crazy. My last year playing was the COVID year. It was January to June, and I was out in Philadelphia, and I was like on the taxi squad for most of the year. Played a few games with the Flyers, but I was out there by myself. We're kids getting older. We're planting our roots here in Minnesota. They're in school. They're on their sports teams. They're in their church. It just would have been hard for us to pull them mid-year and bring them out there. So. It's just that year kind of wore on us. My wife kept saying she totally gets why Britney Spears buzzed her head. And I'm like, oh boy, like I don't want to come back to a buzzed head wife. Like I need to love you again. And so we get back in June, and honestly, all I want to do is to kind of take everything off her plate. She's been a rock star, and behind every athlete there's a rock star wife. They take care of a lot of things behind the scenes, and she definitely did that for me. And I wouldn't have played as long as I did if it wasn't for her. And so this last year, I've been a coach with my coaching soccer, coaching hockey, just Uber driving them around, and just trying to figure out what that next chapter looks like now.
Taking all that time driving the kids around constantly from practice to games to everything, nonstop. Do you have more of an appreciation for what your parents did for you when you were growing up, you and your brother and sister?
Without a doubt. No, I mean, it definitely gives me a greater appreciation. And whenever I go to a kid's camp, I always tell them to make sure to thank their parents for bringing them there and driving them around. I mean, my dad definitely wouldn't have been where I'm at, been to the career I played without him. Obviously his advice and his guidance and his coaching. He coached me, through BAMs and, on some, AAA teams. But just obviously the money it takes, one, and the time it takes, two. I mean, we'd go out to Detroit and then Toronto and Brandon and Vancouver. And we circled these northern states and provinces like it was our job. So it was pretty crazy, but I don't know if my girls will, get to that point or not. I'm just hoping they enjoy a sport. I mean, they're definitely in it for the social aspect right now. They're, we scrimmage in hockey, and they're more enjoying talking with their friends on the bench than, going out and, making plays. So, just trying to instill, have fun and, get some kind of a work ethic out there.
Nate, I wanted to at least give you a few minutes to talk about your podcast. You've alluded to it a few times here on our podcast, but the Prospects, you and your brother Luke getting to share some airwaves together. Yeah. You mentioned you've had Devin Dubnyk on there. Al Stalock is a shared guest. We had him on actually our last episode, so you're following up Al. I'm sure we could spend time. We could spend a whole nother show talking about Al Stalock, and I'm sure your connection that you guys have had together. Nick Seeler, Ryan Carter. You guys are having a blast doing that. From what I've seen, from what I've listened to, lighthearted, fun show. I do have a bone to pick, though. We thought that we had this really clever idea. Segment 1 is period 1. Segment 2, the interview, is period 2. And period 3 is our outro. And then when I listened to your podcast, I realized that you did the same thing. So I got a bone to pick. Although then what I realized is your show actually started before ours did. So we might be stealing from you inadvertently.
Yeah. We might be coming after you guys.
Yeah, I was going to say there might be a cease and desist coming our way pretty soon here from Nate Prosser. But tell us more about the show because for you especially, to get to rehash some of these memories with some of your great friends that you've made throughout hockey, I'm sure is a blast. But also to get to do it with your brother Luke, got to give him a shout out too. MIAC alum at Bethel. I was a MIAC alum. I played at Concordia, so got to give my D3 guys some love too. But talk about the show.
Yeah. We're the idea came to me probably a year ago, and it was the names obviously. I spent a lot of time in the press box at the Xcel Energy Center, where I turned it into the press box. So it's I think I played 360 games or something, and I probably had 300 scratches. So I it's my second home up there, and so I renamed it the press box. And it's just thought it would be a good idea to, start something like this. And the Wild really doesn't have an alumni program yet. I don't know if they're going to start doing that, but, I just started writing down names of guys that I played with, guys that I remember growing up watching. And it just kind of came to me that this is the state of hockey. We loved watching Pierre-Marc Bouchard. We loved watching Mikko Koivu, Andrew Burnett, Guillaume Latendresse. Okay, well, what's going on now? Like what's their life looking like? Because so many guys that are athletes, for lack of a better word, struggle with the transition out of hockey. We put all of our dreams and aspirations into, making it and getting there and staying in the NHL as long as you can. Well, that's kind of our identity. Well, what's your identity now once you leave the game? And so I've been just enjoying catching up with guys, and it was more to first period life, growing up. When did you start? When did you start playing year round? When did you get your opportunity? And then period 2 is more like stories in the game. Time with me, time with the Wild, and then period 3 is kind of the transition. And what's Devin Setaguchi up to these days? Like that kind of stuff. And I know, like, me as a avid Wild guy growing up, I love watching Pierre-Marc Bouchard. I mean, that spinorama move, he's probably the most skilled player I've ever seen in my life. Okay, well, let's talk to him. Let's see what what Butchie Boy's up to these days. And, obviously living in Quebec and speaking French, but, let's see what else is going on.
Well, it really,
So, yeah.
you guys do a great job with the show. I'm not going to give too many podcast recommendations on our podcast, but I highly recommend giving the Pross Box a listen. It's fun, and even the description I thought was really terrific too, with giving a little love to Luke, but also saying the better looking Prosser is yourself. I enjoyed it. I thought you guys play that out really, really well, and the shtick is very good. So
Yeah.
Really good stuff.
My dad gave us the hairline. I mean, we're kind of spitting images, and I thought there'd be no one better. My brother's got a good personality, and he can be the kind of the super fan in the interviews, and it works out well so far. We're early in the process, but we're enjoying doing it. I like catching up with these guys as well, and like I said, we probably have 6 episodes out, and it's been fun just, staying involved and, catching up with these old guys.
Well, from one podcaster to another, Nate, I've just had a superb time talking with you here today. Learned a lot, enjoyed a lot of it, smiled a lot. This has been just a thrill for me, and I know for Joey too. So thanks a million for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing more podcasting out of you, and hopefully we can get you maybe down here to Iowa at some point too during our 10th season, and we could have you come out and see some of all the changes that have happened since you've been down here.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Had a fun time today. Thanks for having me on, and look forward to hear more of you guys too.
Huge thanks to Nate Prosser for giving us a lot of time there. Just such a genuine guy. Really appreciated that, and I'm not really sure if this pairs well to go from such a genuine interview to my first and hopefully last ever Keeping Up with the Kardashians Season 2, Episode 1 report, but here we are. For those who missed it, actually, Joey, for you go ahead and give the what led up to, because if anybody's listening, why are they talking about the Kardashians?
Yeah.
You can tell them why.
All right, so we like to have fun here. We like to do fun things, and
was this fun?
It was fun for me. I don't know.
You haven't even heard it yet.
Yeah, I haven't heard it yet, but we. We'll make some fun little wagers here and there throughout the summer and into the season if things run that long, and coming up with punishments for the bets. And this is one that Ben has been very excited. He'll tell you that he's like, I don't know. I think just Ben just secretly wanted to watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Anyways, when Mitch was here, the three of us, we'd all picked our Stanley Cup predictions. How many games would it end in? Who was going to win? Although me and Mitch did both get it wrong. I mean, we all got it wrong. Me and Mitch at least had the right team. You picked Tampa Bay. You picked them in 7 games.
Bolts in 7.
Which was a crazy pick. And with that, I think you set yourself up for it. I think you knew it was coming. Just giving you an excuse to watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So Ben had to watch an episode, and now he's going to give us a recap. And I would have figured, he's just going to take the most recent episode and recap that. No. Ben really wanted to watch the Kardashians, so he went back to look for an episode which he thought was going to be, the most exciting one, and he settled on one. So, buckle in, strap up. Here we go. Lay it on us.
So, for starters, this was actually my wife came up with this punishment idea because I was explaining to her.
Yeah, right.
I was explaining to her the whole wager punishment idea, and she just came up with it at the snap of a finger, and I thought this was a great idea for reasons unknown. Apparently, there's some debate about why the reasons are there. But anyway, so here we are, and I Googled most ridiculous Keeping Up with the Kardashians episodes because I didn't want to watch some vanilla. I don't know if there is such thing as just vanilla bland Keeping Up with the Kardashians episode or not. But so I found at least whatever Reddit site I went on to and found this, it was Season 2, Episode 1, which, mind you, 2008. I had no idea the show had been running for that long. So 2008, Kim Kardashian was voted the most Googled person at some point in that year. So this episode was titled Kim Becomes a Diva. How I would title this report.
She just became a diva in 2008. Not prior. This moment. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So that was the title of the episode, and the title of my report is Season 2, Episode 1 of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. 22 minutes of my life that I will never get back. So the show opens, the Kardashian family's at their house, which at this episode, I never figured out where this was. I'm guessing somewhere in California. Again, Kim is the most Googled person around this time, so apparently she's very happy. She's dating Reggie Bush, which I totally forgot about her dating Reggie Bush, right? I totally forgot about that. So Reggie did not make an appearance on the show. I'm sure he did at some point, but not in this episode. But so she gets on camera. She's very happy. She's the number one Googled person. She's dating Reggie Bush. Life is good for Kim. But her family apparently doesn't like all this fame has gotten to Kim's head with the Googling. So they don't like the trajectory she's on. So that there's some strife in the Kardashian household.
I'm already
right
just
off the drop of the hat.
Like, listen, the Kardashians drive me nuts. And I'm already so annoyed with this episode, and we're 2 sentences in.
And I got pages here. So they're all sitting on this sectional couch talking, the whole family, all the sisters and the parents are there. And Kim tells the family that they could never understand what she's going through to be in a spot like this. Like, they can't equate, they can't relate. So there's just kind of, back and forth banter. One thing I caught right away was I could not believe how many times like was used, and for a broadcaster, the verbalized pauses, and they really grind my gears. And it was every single person. Like this, like that, and so that was honestly one of the hardest things I had to just get over. It was, I'm going to hear the word like 1,000 times throughout the course of this 22 minutes. So the scene shifts then out of the Kardashian home. They're at some clothing store. I'm guessing maybe they own it. The sisters were acting like they worked there. Maybe they did, maybe they don't. I don't know. It didn't make it evidently clear. So Kourtney tells Khloe, I don't know these by looks, so I think I got them right. Kourtney tells Khloe and Kim that she has her boyfriend Scott's old phone. So, and then the minute they say that, there's some like dramatic music just hits, like, oh, he's, we've got his phone, and Kourtney and Kim demand that she goes through the phone, and Kourtney says that this is not the kind of girlfriend she is. She trusts Scott. And then Kim proclaims herself, no, you can't trust anybody. And we'll find what we need to find, because Kim says that she is the, quote, queen of 007 and, quote, queen of codes. So add that to Kim's mantle of accolades. She's the queen of 007 and the queen of codes. Marquise is laughing. That's a good sign. So they do go through it. They find a text message from a contact on Scott, Kourtney's boyfriend's phone, called My Wife. Again, cue dramatic music, big, dun dun dun, that comes down. So there's a My Wife on there.
Marquise will play it,
yep,
so people
he'll play
know.
that.
Yeah.
And the text to My Wife on Scott's phone says, I can't wait to look deeply into your eyes again. So, I mean, this is madhouse type drama between the sisters now. They're freaking out. Kourtney couldn't believe Scott could be cheating on her. She was sick to her stomach. She storms out of the shop. So the next day, Kourtney calls Scott, calls him to the carpet, says, I've got your old phone. Who's my wife? Who's this? Who's that? Scott denies any wrongdoing, goes with the deny till you die strategy. And Khloe and Kim decide after this phone call goes awry, Kourtney's mad, hangs up on Scott, they're going to plan a girls' trip to Cabo because Kim says it's the easiest place to go to which my response was, is that the easiest place to go to? I mean, again, maybe for them, but probably hop on their PJ and make their trip to Cabo. So they go to Cabo, they go out clubbing, the girls are trying to get Kourtney to hook up with a random stranger. Kourtney's not about that. She still has feelings for Scott. She's very conflicted throughout this whole thing. So they're at this club called Passion. Looks like a really upstanding place. Like a lot of really, you're gonna find your husband or wife there. Is what I walked away thinking. So they go to this club. Kourtney leaves, and then the next day they find Kourtney back at the hotel room, and then there's a random cut shot. Kim's on the phone with her mom, and Kim's also planning a trip to Miami and is livid because apparently when she's gone in the past, her mom has booked all of her hotel rooms for her, and she says that you've booked me the worst hotel rooms ever to stay in Miami, to which I'm thinking like, okay, where have you been? Well, no,
do it yourself.
Well, that too, but where have you been staying? So there's this whole big debacle going on between the mom and Kim about the Miami hotel room. They're still in Cabo. The clubbing experience fails. Courtney still wants to talk to Scott, so she convinces the girls to leave the trip early. They go home. And then the next day, there's still more venom spewing between the mom, who I can't remember her name. Her name wasn't brought up on the show.
I know too much. It's Chris. They've all got names with the letter K. And
I thought I was the one who secretly wanted to watch the show.
Listen. I know pop culture. I don't watch the Kardashians. But it's hard not to know who they are, especially Chris, because she's the one who's masterminded their entire thing. That's why she's half the reason she's famous.
Okay.
Maybe 25% of the reason she's famous.
So Chris is still arguing now in person with Kim, and Courtney returns home to voicemails from Scott because they didn't let her bring her phone with to the trip. Smart move in a bad breakup situation. Smart move, I'll give him that. So their voicemails from Scott are, "I miss you. I'm going crazy. I can't live without you." So they end up getting together to talk about this, and Scott says that the looking in her eyes text was with an ex-girlfriend of his from high school, and says that it was just a joke between the two of them.
Of course.
And
Always
Courtney
is.
accepts that as a valid explanation, that it was just a joke, they were joking around, and says that they can stay together, but she can't give Scott all of her right now. She can only give her a piece of her. Can't give Scott all of her. So he gets a part of Courtney. So that evening, Scott and Courtney are going to dinner. The other sisters surprise them at dinner. Kim and Chloe do, and they essentially confront Scott about this whole thing.
It's like an episode of Cheaters. You ever see that show?
Well, so like the whole thing, yeah. Well, I have a follow-up questions and notes section that we're going to get to. This is just like this is the walkthrough of the whole episode. This is the report.
Yeah.
So they go to dinner. Kim says, "Thank goodness Reggie and I don't have." This is a quote. "Thank goodness Reggie and I don't have the need to be psychos like this." So I'm like, okay, well, I don't remember how that relationship ended. I would be surprised if it wasn't firework laden.
Continue. Keep going.
So Scott goes to the restroom to get a breather from being grilled by the sisters. Chloe then follows him to the bathroom. He comes out of the bathroom, and she intercepts Scott and tells him if he hurts Courtney again, she'll cut his blank off. So we'll just leave that, maybe put a bleep in there, Marquise, or something like that. But so the episode ends the next day after this dinner with Kim making breakfast for the family in the kitchen. And that was the end of the episode.
Yeah, probably because she doesn't cook ever, and I don't think they wanted to catch her not being able to make scrambled eggs in the kitchen.
I don't know. So
I got your Reggie Bush update here. So they had a high-profile relationship. They started dating in 2007. They dated until 2009. They called it quits. Ended up getting back together until March 2010. Why they broke up? It says, when they first broke up, they were just citing their desires to focus on their respective careers, which with Reggie Bush wasn't all that great in the NFL. But I guess that's why.
What was her career?
What would you call her career? Influencer? I don't know. I truly don't know what you call Kim Kardashian's career. I wouldn't call her an actress because it's reality TV. I wouldn't call her a movie star.
It comes back to the question. I don't know if she's
a fashion icon or is she just truly an influencer? Like,
maybe she was the original influencer.
I mean, she's famous for really not having done a whole lot, which is amazing. But I mean, good for her and all her success. Obviously, I wish I was that successful.
Oh,
but,
yeah. I mean, hey. So,
right, give me your
follow-up questions and notes, things that were rolling around in my brain while this was all happening to me. The first thing was, I think when I first walked into this, I thought this show has been so successful because it's so over the top, and it literally, as this episode shows, it's just the lives of people, which people get cheated on all the time in terrible ways. But it's just happening to people who happen to have, an ungodly amount of money and can manage and can produce this and can put this out for people to relate to, I guess. And I thought that the over the topness would make it would add more humor to it. You'd have more moments where you're like, I can't believe this is happening. I didn't have that. And my wife watched it with me, and we both got done and just went. I was hoping for more. I was hoping to have, and not that I thought I was going to become hooked to the show. Never know, but I was hoping that I was going to leave with a little more laughs, a little more like this was enjoyable because it was so ridiculous. It just seemed like much ado about nothing to me. Nothing really happened. I really went blow by blow of what happened in the show, and I think, as you could attest to, and maybe Marquise could too, nothing happened. It was just 22 minutes of really annoying, conversation and a lot of people saying like all the time. And so one of the big questions I had, so Chloe, Courtney, Kim are all in their late 20s at this point, are remarkably rich. Do they live with their parents at this point still? That was one question I walked away with.
I don't know.
Like, wouldn't you think that they would just take, whatever their nest egg is and go and get a great apartment somewhere? That was one question I had. One note I had, Ryan Seacrest was an executive producer of this show. That was a name I had no idea was connected to the show at all.
I'm pretty sure the show is on the E! Network, which he's got a big hand in.
Really? Okay. It is, so I think, because I watched it on Hulu, but it came up.
He's got a big
as
hand
E!
in that network.
Yep. And then I would genuinely like to have someone explain to me, like, this is not a mockingly saying, I would genuinely like to have someone who watches this show consistently just explain to me, and I would listen, like, why do you watch the show over and over again? What does it bring you? Like, does it bring you joy? Does it comparing yourselves to these people, that wouldn't bring me joy. I'd be like, well, they just have way more money than me and go do whatever they want, and et cetera, et cetera. So I would genuinely like to be, I'd like to know what people get out of the show. And my biggest question that I had was, do we think that the Kardashians know that there's the butt of ridicule that they are in some spaces?
Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely they do.
And so do they know that and they don't care because the show has made them even more rich than they already were? Or do we think that they may actually think people are that genuinely invested in their lives?
I think it's both. I think they think that people actually care about them because, absurdly enough, people do. I mean, people follow them in the tabloids and all that stuff. I mean, look, Kardashians drive me nuts. I don't watch the show, but, like, I know pop culture. They're everywhere. I know Courtney, I think, dates Travis Barker. I know
Courtney was
Kim was with Kanye
with
West,
Scott.
and now
Yep.
she's with Pete Davidson. Like, I know Chloe was with Lamar Odom. She's definitely
know
not
more about
anymore.
the show than I do.
No,
as much
see,
as you
but
were
this isn't
gassing
the
me
sh-
about
No,
being
no,
interested
no,
in
no.
the show, you
See?
know more about it than I do.
No, this isn't the show. This is just knowing pop culture. They're all over the news. You can't turn on like a TMZ or anything without seeing them. They're on.
But you're turning on TMZ on a regular basis?
No, I'm not. I actually never watched TMZ. But
you just said you can't turn on TMZ without seeing them on a regular basis.
Because
So where
you
else were
can't.
you seeing them?
Anywhere.
I'd like to dig into this a little bit
You
more.
can dig into it.
Like you're deflecting all this this quote interest that I have in this show with really, because secretly
I didn't watch it, so
I'm surprised you didn't pick
Who
the
did?
Bolts in 7. Maybe I was the smarter guy.
I knew better.
Well, I think you secretly wanted to watch the show too. And
can
you even said
assure
you wanted to know
I
what
do
episode
not.
I watched. You said this before the episode. You thought about trying to figure out what episode I was watching so you could watch it too,
Oh, see-
even though you lost the bet. Or
No,
I
no,
lost the bet.
Here's what we're doing here. You're twisting my words because Marquise can back me up. That was not the context whatsoever of what I said. I said I was curious which episode you were going to pick so that way I could watch it so I knew what you were talking about as you were going along. Not because I wanted to watch it. You just gave me a 10, maybe 15-minute recap of a show that I'm never going to watch, nor do I really care about.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, so, like, I'm not going to
wouldn't.
watch it. Would it have made a little bit more sense? Maybe could I have answered some of your questions? No, but I would have been able to know maybe what you were talking about.
Yeah. So all that being
You enjoyed it much more than I
all
did.
that being said, it left me. I did have higher expectations, and I don't know how high those expectations could be within the realm of real expectations of when I walk into a show that I actually legitimately do want to watch, and I'm not watching because I lost a bet on the podcast that we have for the company that I work for.
Mm-hmm.
But it left me high and dry. They let me down. It was not, the entertainment value was not nearly what I had hoped it would be. It was unfortunate to let me down. I did think it was going to be more enjoyable than it was.
He's hoping to be left wanting more.
I
To
did.
watch more
in some
episodes.
way, shape, or form. I did hope that, and I did not get that. It was my wife and I were having a wonderful Sunday, and then I had to watch this, and it came to a screeching halt. We picked it back up after, and we had a nice rest of our evening, but it was a hard stopgap in the middle of a very nice Sunday.
I'm glad you had a good time.
So
I'm glad
there
you
we
had
go. We'll look into our next punishment here shortly. We got to come up with. Well, we do have our next punishment. We don't have our next bet yet.
If anybody's got an idea for a bet, I mean, we're talking the Red Sox and Twins. They don't play for a little while. So if anybody's got anything that we could maybe think of, we got
on
the
ice,
punishment.
on ice hockey bet.
Maybe, probably not. But we got the punishment. We're not going to share that with you now, but we got a good one. So if you got ideas, let us know. Just in general, if you have questions you want us to answer, if you have questions you want us to ask guests that we've got lined up, like, let us know. We'll do whatever we can. I think it's probably a good time to tease who our guest is going to be next week. So if people have questions, if they want to send that stuff over, they got a couple days to do that before we chat with them. But Matt Boldy.
Yeah,
the big guy.
And planning on, just so our fans know, we got that interview scheduled for Thursday of this week. So that's your 48-hour window of getting questions over to us if you want us to get anything specific with Matt. Really looking forward to that, and really looking forward to talking about his golf game, because I've talked about it with him before, and you said he was getting some love on Spit and Chicklets recently about his golf game. So
he was.
Apparently the secret is out on his ability to put a little white ball into a cup, because
Matt Boldy's a stick on the golf course.
Yeah, I've heard that not only from him, but I've corroborated that with other players that have played with him. He is as good as advertised, so I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit. And I know he has a great story about playing with his brother consistently and really competitively. It's a fierce competition apparently in the Boldy household on the golf course. So that'll be a great interview. Really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that that just about wraps it up. Reminder, go like the podcast on YouTube, subscribe to it on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to. Give us those reviews. Give us those 5-star reviews, because we've already talked about it. We're in that upper echelon of podcasts now, so we're at top. We deserve 5 stars. But definitely give that to us. It helps us out. It helps the podcast out. If we want to keep this going, that's going to go a long way. So definitely like, subscribe, comment. Again, send us questions, whatever it is you've got. That's really my parting words.
Yeah, and as always, a big thank you to Jeremy Core and Executive Podcast Solutions, who makes it possible that you, the listener or the viewer, are watching or listening to this. So a big shout out to Jeremy and Executive Podcast Solutions. Also a big thank you, of course, to Nate Prosser for a tremendous and a great interview. Really enjoyed that chat with Nate, and we'll look forward to next week. Until then, for Joey Goldstein, I'm Ben Gislason. Thanks for hopping on board, and 2 honks for the win.